Díomh gach daoine agus fáilte go dtí a cuddamh brethebh is mis a cuimhín ó Flanagan. Hello, everybody. You're very welcome to the Brehon Academy, and I'm Kevin Flanagan, and I have a great episode lined up for you tonight. We're going to be speaking to Maria Johnston. Now, Maria Johnston is a talented artist in her own right, but she's also behind a very special and interesting project called VisionEire. And VisionEire is a platform that is gathering all of these artists of a similar mind from around the country and giving them a means to channel their work, a platform to channel their work into the public domain, into the real world. Now, in this conversation, Maria takes us on a journey, her artistic journey from her childhood, when she recalls her first memory, her first artistic memory, when she was a child in kindergarten, and how her creative enthusiasm was marred when the kindergarten teacher gave out to her because she did something that was not very within the rules. Now, it wasn't until fifth or sixth class, so in primary school, that her talents really began to be recognized. And she talks about how her parent-teacher meetings improved dramatically after she started to get recognized for her own artwork. She then talks about her artwork, her personal artwork, and mostly her out there artworks. And I'm going to display images of her art as we're talking about those images. And then we wrap up the conversation with a deep dive into the work of VisionEire itself. We talk about how to get involved if you're a curious artist and you want an outlet for your creative expression. And we also discuss Maria's vision for the future. Now, with all of that being said, Acordia, let's just jump straight into the interview with Maria Johnston. Hello, Maria. You're very welcome to the Brehon Academy. And I came across your work when your VisionEire page was recommended to me by a friend, mutual friend. And I was very impressed with the work that you're doing. So I decided to reach out to you, and I'm really glad that I did. And I'm really glad that you've agreed to speak to me this evening. And for those of my audience who don't know who you are, could you maybe just, start off with telling us a little bit about your background, introduce yourself, and what are you doing these days?
So hello. Thank you so much, Kevin, for having me and reaching out. And I know we've had a few wee chats in the lead up to this. So it's great what you're doing. And I'm delighted to be able to talk. I love to talk. So my name is Maria, and I'm a visionary artist. Now, for those who don't know or what visionary art is, that's something I of a coining of a term that I took on for the type of art that I do, which would be pertaining to more the inner realms, visionary realms, as opposed to just the realms that we see with our physical eyes. That's just a summary on that one. But I'm also a platform developer leader of VisionEire. So VisionEire is still very much in its infancy. However, it has been operating for about 3 years now. And it's come in off the fringes, off the hedgerows, quite literally, and is coming into the fore, into the frame. So it's a very, very deep rooted grassroots movement of artists that have collectivized and come together to try and reshape things in the structured setup. And so I'm an artist, platform leader, and I'm also a teacher as well. So I don't teach in schools. I've abstained from all sorts of school setups to teach on the fly off my own bat. So I teach art as well in all sorts of formats. So that's the summary.
So when I was researching you, I came across a piece of information that your background is in music composition. Is that correct? From Trinity College Dublin. And so I'm just curious, like, how does your background in musical composition influence your work as a visionary artist?
That's a really good question, and that's not a question I don't think I've ever really been asked, and I'm delighted. Because actually, I don't really share too much. A lot of people who even know me wouldn't actually know that I have a degree in music. It's something that only a few people know of, just because after I took on the degree very like much on a, I wouldn't say on a whim. It was an active decision. But I didn't. Uh, I wasn't a long-standing musician before I went and took on that degree. I was playing by ear. I was playing intuitively, and it was really also an act of avoiding having to put my visual art through academia. So I took a diversion.
Interesting. Hmm.
Um,
And so was this like in sixth year when you decided to do the degree?
yeah, about 3 months before the leaving cert.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
God love
thought
my
so because
parents.
it's like we'll just put down anything on the CAO form. I had a similar experience.
Yeah, I even had archaeology down there as my second choice after
Yeah.
music. Um, because I was like, I'm interested in the land and discovery, and I'm interested in the creative arts. But I just knew from going to artist talks in you know what I mean, in third level education, I was like, yeah, this is not for me. They're going to, I actually, these are my own words as a 17-year-old. They're going to destroy me.
Yeah.
And there was wisdom in that 17-year-old, because I know a lot of people come out. I mean, does anybody come out of education unscathed? I don't think so. In
No.
general,
And
but
another thing as well is like it's a big ask to say to a 17 or 16-year-old to start thinking about the career you're going to do for the rest of your life. And it's all hinged on the results you get in the leaving cert, which I think is just a little bit too much pressure. So I did the CAO form and I went to NCAD, I think. Uh, yeah, that's out in Dunleary. And I was doing computer multimedia design or something like that. And I dropped out after a month just because it was like it wasn't what I wanted to do, and I couldn't see myself doing it
mm,
for the rest of my life, you know. So I decided to go and work. Then I worked for 3 years, and then I had enough money to go traveling, and I went traveling to India. Anyway, this is not about me. I just this is about you.
now
So
I
I'm
know.
just trying to say, like, I can relate to that situation where you're 17 and you're feeling all of this pressure from your education, from your teachers, and from your, classmates who are all filling in the CAO form. And for my international listeners, a CAO form is the form that you fill in to pick your courses, pick what you're going to study in college, and it's all based on the points. So, yeah.
Yeah, I like, in so many senses, I never did adhere to any of it, which is why I think I was so, in some senses, to other people watching me, like nearly flippant in my decision making around my life choices, because there was also this radicalized part of me that just didn't care. And also just wanted to prove to see what I could do just to flip the table at the end of it. There was that kind of mindset in me. But however, I did actually I had a genuine interest in music, and I really did want to understand music. So that's why I really went in on it as a choice. I didn't tell my parents that I was doing this. They found out after the fact. And so I learned music really, really quickly, as in, like, when I say learned music, it was all everything that I was doing was intuitive based.
Mm.
Was I had a good ear for music, but I had to learn the script essentially very quickly to get into the course, and I managed to just fly my way in. Um, I mean, it was difficult. That's a whole
I
other
mean,
story, but
Trinity College is one of the, it probably is the most prestigious college in the
it's
country.
it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to graduate with a tinfoil hat on my head just to prove a point. You know what I mean? Just to just just to, because they're so. Anyway, yeah, it is. It's one of these prestigious colleges, and
Yeah.
it's built upon a long standing systems, and
Of social elitism.
yeah, yeah, and like, it was almost a shameful thing for me to mention that I was going to Trinity College because I hated the reaction. Because some people would be like, "Oh, Trinity,
I
oh,
know, yeah, yeah,
and then other people are like, "Oh, that's amazing,
yeah,
wow!" And
I
they
know,
make it up, and both were just really annoying. So that's why I feel like I just did it in almost hiding in a
yeah.
lot of senses. I did it in the
That's very
background.
interesting. That's very
It's not
interesting.
something that I fly the flag of,
Yeah,
even though if I were to speak honestly, I went in there barely understanding how to read any music notation, but I came out of there writing symphonies and I was having them played in orchestras. So I did
wow,
really go in on it. And
yeah,
I think it's because I took the cap off the limitations of myself. I was also very young and I had nothing to lose in a sense. I
yeah.
think if I were to do something like that now, it would feel like such a I sacrificed everything else in my life to go and do this. I put the art aside because art is always
Yeah.
a part of my journey and my trajectory, even back then.
Sorry to interrupt the video, folks. I do hope you're enjoying it. And if you are, use this opportunity to please tickle the like button and hit subscribe if you're not already subscribed. And if you do want to be notified for when future videos are uploaded, make sure you hit the bell notification as well. And just to use this opportunity to remind you to check out thebrehinacademy.org. That's where you're going to find articles on all of the topics that we talk about on this channel. You're also going to find information about my online courses. We have 3 of them: Early Irish Culture and Society, Irish Mythology, and the Brehon Laws of Early Ireland. We also have an online store over there, so if you want to support me that way, you can buy a couple of t-shirts or postcards or bookmarks. And if you want to become a member, it's completely free to become a member of my website, and that will give you access to the members library, which has over 130 downloadable resources, and that's growing all the time. If you want to support me financially on a monthly basis, consider becoming a member of my YouTube channel. Membership starts from as little as $2 per month, and that will give you access to exclusive videos and other goodies and things like that. Now, we're also on social media as well. So we have a presence on Facebook, we have a presence on X, we also have a Telegram channel, and we have a TikTok channel as well. And my New Year's resolution is to start posting more on TikTok as well. Now, with all of that being said, sorry for the interruption, and let's jump back into the interview. I want to just revisit something you said a few moments ago that, like, I don't know if you said you were afraid, but that you didn't want to put your art through the academic process. Could you just flesh that out a little bit, please?
Deconstruction, deconstruction of something that is puerile. Like this is look. I mean, there's multitude of art courses out there, right? So let's, and I may be coming from my own angle, which I am obviously, but I just found that there was in my observation of the artwork coming out from colleges, and I did look at it, you know what I mean? There was a deconstruction happening whereby it became more sort of, and these words that we use like contemporary, nuanced, you know what I mean, all the rest. Like I didn't want my creative hat deconstructed, because I felt very sure, even back then, even though I was painting and drawing different things and I didn't have a clear view for where I would be going, but I knew that it was coming from me,
Yeah,
and I knew that I could do it, and I had a lot of confidence in my capacities. I knew I wasn't up to where I could be into the future, but I knew that I could get there on my own. Whereas, with the music, looking back, I think I could, but I just, again, it was just a diversion, and it was a means to understand academia from another sense. And having diverted from one into the other, bringing music through that, I can absolutely say that I was right.
excellent. So, could you describe? Okay, I want to take you back to drawing pencils
Yeah.
on the table when you're a child, right? So go back that far, okay? Because I'm sure you were doing that. And how would you describe your like the evolution of your artistic process from the early experiences drawing and painting to what you're doing now, which is more involved in like the visualizing of dreams and altered states of consciousness? Can you just talk us through that journey and take as long as you want for this?
These are good questions. I like them. Um, okay, so I look, I was always I'm just gonna be straight up. Like I was always interested in things that were otherworldly, even growing up, back way back when I picked up the pencil first. My mother spoke about it. There's evidence of me being like something other than the norm. She said I used to kind of like talk about experiences that, you know what I mean, or beings that I would see or different things. So naturally I needed an outlet for that, and creativity is a natural output, an output for that. I guess like I was always interested in develop it's interesting because I look back, I was always interested in trying to say more with my art from a very early age. I was like every other child who would just color in the lines and draw things. And actually, my earliest memory of picking up a like an art material thing is actually when I first entered like play school. So I was probably about like two or three. And I looked at all of the pencils and I was like, boring, 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 boring. And then I saw a highlighter and I was like, yes. So I picked out the highlighter and I was like, oh, yes. And then I just remember this hand coming over my hand and going, Maria, no. And I was like, what? Like, why no? This fun. And I was actually put up on a high chair for lunch in play school because I had grabbed the highlighter off the teacher's table and I wasn't
Oh,
allowed.
oh,
And I was
okay.
to use the pencil to color to draw the join the dots, and I didn't join the dots. I went right across the page, and I just remember the feeling of ignoring the structure and going absolutely every single way I wanted to with the highlighter. It was like, oh, I was doing things to my brain, and
Wow.
but the humiliation I received as a result of doing that was massive. I remember because I have a really, for some reason, I have like really clear early memories. I don't remember everything, but I have a few memories that are really super clear. But this is one of them. And I remember the other children in the play school laughing at me for being up in this high chair. So it's very formative. It's like to stand
Yeah,
out, to do
yeah,
something different, to be bold, is to get in trouble, is to be in shame. So I think I inherited a bit of that growing up, where I
yeah.
stopped myself from expressing myself in the ways that I knew how. And I sort of tried to fit in with the mold a little bit in order to be passable in society,
Yeah.
in school, and but I've since a long time now broken out of that, and yeah.
So you just, when you were speaking there, you reminded me of a story that I often like to share with people. Um, when you said bowls there a few moments ago, Irish people have a tendency to think of the word bold as being a synonym of naughty, like don't be bold. But when
Yeah.
you go back to the Irish, it's Nobby Donna, and Donna is the same word for a poem. So we have a gallery is like Donlan, okay? And so back in the day when we were under the yoke of a foreign power, a mother would say to you as you were leaving the house, Nobby Donna, which we equate as that as being don't be bold, meaning naughty, but it doesn't mean that. I mean, don't be ostentatious. Don't be doing anything that will draw undue attention to yourself because there is a really serious risk that if you drew undue attention to yourself, you wouldn't come home. And it's just
Wow.
interesting that like it's like you always say sorry. Like if you bumped into me in the street, I'd say sorry to you.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it's just this kind of it's kind of like a idiosyncrasy of Irish people to say like don't be bold and kind of make yourself small and no be Donna. And so, but the real meaning of bold is like brave. It's like don't be
Mm,
brave. Like the hero boldly slew the dragon.
yeah, yeah.
So I love telling that story because it just kind of alters the perception of bold, Donna, and art. You can blend all those things together.
Yeah, so true. And this is like, look, even it with my team, like I've managed to retain an element of my Donna, right? And I love that, by the way, like that thing that like causes a little bit of of an attention, just enough to not like completely be taken out. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Although
I
I
get the
have been
idea.
actually taken out of classrooms and it's like, you just need to stand outside because I found it very difficult to censor myself fully. There's always that part of me that was sort of sticking out, you know what I mean? Sticking outside of the box a bit and would it was difficult at times. I say it in a way that's like, I'm laughing at it now, but other times, I would get into serious trouble. And I would also get into trouble, not only in school, but at home as well, just by saying the thing. It was often the elephant in the room. It was the obvious thing to me, like I'm just gonna, like,
A little bit
like
too honest.
I have this funny one where my mother brought me to a nun's house. I don't know what that would be called. It was just a nun's house.
A nunnery.
multiple nuns living there, and I'd heard on the radio just on the way in the car. I was only about 10 or 11 years old, but I turned on the radio the word menopause because it was being mentioned in terms of like just something that was being advertised, and I ran around. I ran around the nun's house screaming menopause, like at the
Oh,
top of my lungs. I was just like, this is the perfect place
you were
to
very
coin
bold,
this
yeah.
word. And my mother was just like, Maria, please God, like, I go up to the nun and say, you know, and she's
Yeah,
like, what is my daughter? Like, like, what have I created here? But it was just that sort of thing where I saw, something to be explored, something to create through, and I would just kind of do it, that
yeah.
kind of way. So there's my bold nature,
Mm,
if it got me into trouble, that was one thing, but it's something
yeah.
that I've retained in myself.
So I want to take you back to that thing, the story you were describing in your play school, and that you were supposed to join these dots, but you went outside with the highlighter, right? So I want you to like go back to that story and try to join those dots to get us to the point that you're at now. So there must have been a time during that artistic journey when you realized that you were, more talented than say somebody else in the class. Can you remember that specific time where you looked at your art and you were like, this is actually fantastic? Or maybe a teacher who wasn't your kindergarten teacher gave you a compliment or something like that.
Yeah, I do remember it. I remember like it really like this is a big thing for teachers is that when teachers actually begin to recognize you as an individual over a group of students who they just have to paint you all with one brush, right? We're doing but I did have a substitute teacher that came in when I think it was in fourth class in school, so it was probably about 9 or 10, something like that. And I remember that she was actually teaching us like light, form, perspective, shadow, all the rest. And this is something that I had been like trying to practice myself, but not quite getting it because of my young brain and just needing the guidance. And she did these kind of for art with us. And it was then that I recognized that I had an ability, because I was able to do what she was teaching us, and then she recognized me, and then she put me up on this. She put my drawing up on this board outside of the classroom, and it was like like art student of the year, or whatever she had on it. And then other people started
But that's a
recognizing.
really interesting juxtaposition from being like sat up on the high chair in kindergarten to
Yeah,
be made an example of, and then to have your work displayed, being made an example of, right? It must have been like, I'm just drawing those connections there. That
yeah.
must
No,
have been a really good feeling the second time, you know?
it was because of my parent teacher meetings got better after that point. I used to listen in on parent teacher meetings at the door. I'd always ask my mum to say, "Can I go with her?" And she'd be like, "Why do you want to go with me?" I was like, "Just to sit outside." But I was listening.
Yeah.
Um, I put my ear up to the door.
You're so bold.
I put my ear up to the door. I just needed to know, I needed to know what they were saying. But I from my listening of my parent teacher meetings, I noticed that they got better after the point that I was suddenly being recognized for something that I was good at. Uh, the parent teacher meetings prior were like, Maria doesn't engage, she's off daydreaming, she's in a different world. I look back on the written school reports, and they're all pretty much like, Maria's off in another planet. And I was. And I was. I really was. And you know what? That planet was way freaking better than the one that I was shoved into on a daily basis, you know?
Yeah. So
Um,
so maybe from there it's a good leaping off then, because you're talking about being on another planet. You're presenting art that you call visual art. So how do you get from that? Must have been secondary school, right?
uh, which was second, well, sorry.
The when you're starting to get recognized.
No, I was starting to be recognized in the like from fourth, fifth, sixth class, and
Okay.
then I went into secondary school, and then I had an art teacher who really recognized me, and she really like was like, look, you really do have a gift. You need to pursue this. You know what I mean? Don't
Yeah.
let that go to waste. And I didn't. Like often at lunch breaks, I would actually go into the art room just to work on something that wasn't even on the curriculum. It was just because I liked art that much.
Yeah.
And, it was easier for me to express myself there than sometimes it was with all of my friends. Like when I went into secondary school, I found my confidence really wasn't there, because I was starting to come from this outer worldly being where I was lost in imagination into suddenly like, you need to show up because people are now engaging with you.
Yeah.
you know and I found that transition very difficult. Often I like at one point I really was quite mute in school. Um, but yeah, art was a means for me to be recognized for who I am without having to actually like necessarily show up in that way, which I
Hmm.
wasn't ready to do. I did a lot of stage acting, which helped me, activate my voice and get myself sort of actually speaking again. But yeah, I suppose secondary school, and then my teacher then very soon had me teaching the class because she was just like, look, you just help that person out. And I actually really enjoyed that. I really did. I was like, I was very happy to be teacher as well.
Yeah. So how do you typically begin this process of producing what you call visionary art, such as like a dream, a meditative insight into a symbolic composition? Like, what is the actual process, the thought process that goes on behind that? Is there much of a process at all, or do you just kind of start putting paint to paper and just see what you can create?
Yeah, so there is a process, and like it there's because I've worked this channel so over so many years now. I really like have been able to break down my process in a lot of ways and actually teach it to others. Because I don't believe that this is something that is solely mine. It's something that I have developed through an organic way of being, but it's something that others can do as well. So the process really can look different depending, but I'll break I suppose the most common one down is that um, you it's hard to know where to begin with a creative process, right? Because it's like, everything feeds into it for me. You know, I could be on a particular journey or of an aspect of something that's happening in my life that opens me up to maybe a physical journey outward. That could be on the land somewhere. I'm called to a certain place or whatever. Or it could be that I'm called to meditate, or I'm called into the dream world and to explore it that way, or a multitude of those things. And out of there will generally come some sort of a vision or an experience of some kind. And when I say like vision, people are kind of like, well, like, where's the vision? You know, like, how are you, like, what is that? You know, because a lot of people don't necessarily have that piece of themselves activated, shall we say, you know, whereas I actually spent a long time actually working to reactivate that part of myself. Um, but it is like, it like the equivalent of it would be like people who actually hear things, right? Like I see things, you know, I see things that are not necessarily there, and then that's where the abnormal
Hmm.
aspect comes from,
Hmm.
where people are like, well, sure, how are you seeing that? It's like, I don't know, it's just like an extra
Yeah,
dimensional layer or something like that.
it sounds a little bit like clairvoyance,
Yes.
or for people
Yeah.
who hear things, it's like clairaudience or something like clair aural, and for
Yeah.
people who uh just know things, it's claircognizance.
Cognizance, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a combination of all of these in being sort of like tuning in. You know, you're when you're tuning into yourself, you're tuning into uh like a location, a dream or whatever. Like you're activating these parts of ourselves that are connected to our inner sight, our intuition, and all the rest. A lot of people are receiving these things all the time, but they don't ever capture it, you know. And the difference between me, maybe, and somebody else is the fact that I capture it. That's a part of it for me. Is that I don't capture absolutely everything that comes to me or comes through me at all. I couldn't like unless I was had a pencil for a finger. Do you know what I mean? And I was constantly just getting it out. But um, capturing it is part of the so how it begins. Like people see the finished piece and they're like, wow, how did you do that? What's that? You know? And I'm like, oh, you should see it when it started. And I like to show people because I think it also gives people an element of like, oh, there is a process to this, and you don't need to start out with something that's as fully detailed or whatever. You know, it's capture the seed or the essence of whatever it is that you have coming through you, right? So whether that's like, so for me, the vision could be, okay, I see a tree and a man standing there, and like there's a bird flying around or whatever it is, you know what I mean? It's like get that down on paper, and even if it's just a scribble, just get it out, because the likelihood of you then going on to create that in a further to a further extent is far more likely than if you just leave it circulating. In fact, if
Mm.
you leave it circulating, it will go back into the database of every of the stream of consciousness, and it'll probably come out elsewhere. I
Yeah.
think things tend to linger in us out of potential, like, you know, potential of like, oh, maybe she'll take this up. But if you don't, I do feel like it goes back, because nothing can be wasted in that way. But
Yeah. Mm.
then I suppose it's just the development of that. So anything that I feel like, oh, this really needs to be seen, and this is something like that goes beyond me then, because there's part of me that's like, what, like this is part of my own exploration, or but then I'm like, no, this is something collective, or this is something beyond me, and then I know I need to bridge it out there and complete it. And part of my process, and this is what, you know, is everyone has their own style or their own creative stream, but for me it's like mine is to try and get it as close to the original source as possible. And that's where my perfectionism comes into play, which is it's difficult to navigate.
And so, are there any particular materials that you would enjoy using most, or what is the material that is most easiest to kind of realize your vision?
Oils, 100%. There, that's definitely my medium. It's my happy place is oil paints. on canvas. Now I'm very happy to use other materials as well. But like you just find your groove, you find your niche, that you can say what you want to say with those materials. So you're not necessarily going to want to that, you'll always come back to that. I've explored a range of mediums, you know what I mean? And I do also like the whole thing of taking things off the canvas and into the world, and building things from scratch, you know what
So,
I
so
mean?
can you, what do you mean when you say that?
Well, see, this is the point for me, is that, like, anything that is on the canvas, I feel ripples off. And that's how I approach painting, is that, and that's how I approach even teaching painting. It's like it's not a means to no end. It's an energetic channel where everything is that is vibrating in you becomes real and visible and tangible and seen to others, who then absorb that information and take that on as a particle in their own being, whether they're conscious of it or not. And I
Mm.
realized the power of expression in that, is that we are actually made up of a multitude of other people's output and expression. The design uh, that we immerse ourselves in, the house that was built, every piece of it has become an aspect to us and our environment and our reality. And so that's why, for me, when I say taking things off the canvas, it's kind of like it ties into that vibrational field and bringing something different into this reality. But then also in a very tangible and practical sense, it's like, no, actually build it, like actually make that thing. So the nearest thing that I can get to that allows me to do that without, like, I don't know, fabricating like whole structures with my hands, you know. Maybe we'll get there. But festivals are playgrounds for building things from scratch. So I like to build festival installations. Yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
bridge that beyond piece.
So you mentioned that you're also teaching art, and what sort of like techniques or processes would you use to, with your students, encourage them to also depict their inner world, let's just say, to bring their imagination onto the canvas?
Yeah, so, like, honestly, for the most part, it's that people don't know that they can do that. It's almost giving them permission to uncap themselves from the world and explore other things again, and say that, like, it's really about creating the safe space to go into that. Um, and by showing yourself as an example and saying, like, look,
Hmm.
like, you know um and generally people will recognize that they also have that in them, and these are the people who get drawn to me. There's other people who are so far out of that sphere that they'll look at me and then kind of go, huh, like, they'll hear what I have to say, and they'll dismiss it. Although I have worked with people who have been that level of dismissive and then have come back the way around as well. So you never really know. But I guess it's bringing them on a journey. I like to almost be like this, like, in the classes that I host, and it depends on the format and the people coming to it. Obviously, I'll feel out the group. If it's a group first, I'll feel out the person. I'll know what way to navigate it. So I almost act as a little bit of like a, I don't know how to call it, but because I've never really named it, but like nearly like a visionary shaman
Yeah, I
who
was going to
guides
say that,
through.
shaman.
Yeah, some sort of like, and I prompt them, and I noticed that the prompts are like, kind of, they're intuitive and they're channeled, but they're designed to help people come up against their blocks. And then we'll see how many blocks we can ride through on the way to the vision or the channel being open, without their we coming up against a really big wall where, actually, okay, we need to stop. So that's how I approach it. It's really like bringing people through their own vision again. Um, yeah, and that looks a lot like a meditation. You know what I mean? With prompted guided guidance, and then them getting it down in the same way I described. It's like, get it out.
Yeah.
and then developing it as well. So I would guide them then into the practical elements of saying it in the best way that they can, you know.
So, what are the primary sources of inspiration? Because I'm looking at your art here, and there's a lot of, how would I say, like mythological themes, archetypal themes, and is that from like, books that you've read or um yeah, so like what are your primary sources of inspiration for those works?
Yeah, it's a good question because like everything I say, like if you look at those paintings and if you go back to where I really like, okay, I've always been painting and drawing and it's all part of my journey, but I would name it from about 2016. That's when I started to really go into it and call myself like a visionary and actually own that part of myself again,
Hmm.
and sort of take the cap off myself, stop masking as much as I was masking, although it took a good few more years to actually fully step into that. But if you look at the journey, you'll see that my inspiration and where I was is it was very out there. It was very cosmic, and then it became more earthed. You know what I mean? So like even in my own being, I felt like I was out of body for most of my life. And I actually had a lot of out of body experiences. Um, like I'd be sitting in the classroom, but I'd be hovering over my own head at the same time. Very weird, very scary for a child to try and understand what that is about. Um, but yeah, I suppose in another sense, like the inspiration for me is the journey itself. Um, and I don't necessarily, obviously, there's so much in my world and my environment that I'm inspired by and inspired through, but it is ultimately the journey of whatever I am or am about as a part of everything else. So that started out on this kind of cosmic trail. And then it was sort of like, there was a part of my journey where I was like, I need to root deep. I need to remember myself in a much more rooted way as opposed to this out there cosmic sort of
Hmm. Yeah.
thing. And so that's when the mythology came through. However, I was always interested in mythology. I grew up with a father who's very, very into the same stuff and is probably like in his own way quite like me in a lot of senses, but probably a little bit more like he wouldn't come out and say the sort of things that I would say, but he sort of
Mm.
gets it in a
A
way,
bit
you
more
know.
grounded.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like it's funny because like I actually find that I am extremely grounded, but I'm not afraid to go out because I
Hmm.
spend so long out. I don't need to be afraid of that piece. You know what I mean? But the mythology is a way of understanding like for me, it's a way of understanding the threads of our journeys here on the earth. It is almost like if like could be described as a flip side to like the the out there stuff. It's very much in there.
Yeah.
Um, so it's they're sort of related. But yeah, my dad was always sharing stories of mythology growing up. So that was definitely fed into my mind and my imagination and my output, even to this day, you know.
Yeah. So just sticking on the astrology, cosmology topic here for a second, because I'm looking at your artwork here on your website and they're very fascinating, they're very detailed. And I just want to pick apart this idea of especially the cosmic womb of the Divine Mother and origins. Maya is another interesting one. And there was one with a rainbow. Do you remember the one I'm thinking of?
There's a few with rainbows now, but
Yeah,
there's
there
there's a,
is. The
there's an
only way
ecliptic
out is
one.
the
Oh,
the
that
only
one. Yeah,
the
that
only
one.
way out is through or something. Uh,
The only way out. No, hang on. Is that the one with the eye?
it is, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, the
Okay,
only way out is through.
it's through. Okay, got it.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
looking at it now. And then the other one is the only way truth is forgiveness. And there's a lot of like UFOs in the picture. Well, there's three UFOs in the picture. And I'm going to share these with my audience,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
So
yeah.
while we're talking about them, they'll be able to see them. They don't have to imagine them. So could you just talk me through, like, what was going through your mind when you decided to draw these beautiful pieces of art?
What was going through my mind? Geez, how do you summarize that? Yeah, so like, okay, so let's just take the truth is forgiveness one. The only way truth is forgiveness. Now, by the way, these names are also statements, you know what I mean? They're statements that have nearly come along with the experiences themselves. And so these are actually like this particular one with the supernumerary rainbow coming out and the UFOs and the world splitting element of it was actually a dream I had in 2016 that woke me up drastically. And when I say dream, it was like,
Felt real.
yeah, it was very lucid, very, very lucid, down to the leaf on the tree lucid. Super, super detailed. And of course, I was not, and I know like the symbols and things that are in there, people are like, oh, are you into like, this or that or what? Like nothing. I was literally like, this is like at the time I wasn't involved in any spiritual communities. I wasn't on any of these YouTube channels or anything. I was living a very, very ordinary life, you know what I mean? And this comes through. So it was just, I see now that like a lot of it, could pertain to things that people have said and are talking about right now, and but at the time I didn't know that. I had an experience that I needed to paint and to try and understand myself. But yeah, the rainbows are always interesting because when they would show up in the dreams, they would act as a kind of like a bridge into a another dimension. So I was able to in dreams like almost call in these rainbows and then dimensionally shift into another aspect of the dream.
Hmm.
Um, and anytime I would do this, I would then become lucid in the dream, which was so I was having all of these wild experiences, but this particular one was like where I saw the earth almost like the like again I didn't have terms for any of this back then, but I saw it was like there were two kind of points to the earth that were splitting away from each other. Um, I would now probably understand it as timelines that were sort of like you have the on one end of things a very destructive timeline of war and you know what I mean, pollution and store, you know what I mean, like environmental collapse, social
Yeah.
collapse,
Hmm.
and then this other timeline opening up, which is like us coming into a much higher understanding and connection to the earth where there's endless abundance and also a different view. If you see even in the leaves, I tried to paint this out but it was hard for me, but there's other colors coming through. There's like almost this bioluminescence that is like palpable in this sort of
Yeah.
way of
Hmm.
connection. But the two of them were also happening simultaneously. So it's a very interesting dream.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So what about the only way out is through? The one with the eye. I just want to describe it like there's an eye, there's a heart, there's a rainbow coming out of the eye, there's somebody standing in the iris, and there's a broken ring. It looks like a broken ring on fire around the eye. So what's that
There was
about?
a lot of symbology in that. That actually was brought to me by somebody who I never met. He commissioned me to do this, and he brought to me a story of a past life that he had that he could not get over. And I was like, wow, that's really interesting. And he had a concept in mind for how he was going, like what he wanted me to do with this. And I said, no, I'm going to transmute it through a painting. And it felt like it was a collective piece. The actual story was of like a man who was powerful, like a king or something, sort of betraying his people through misuse of power. So this is really about like seeing through. So you have the eye, the inside of the eye. I know it looks like a heart, but it's actually a cross section into the eye, which actually appears as a heart. So
Oh
if you were
wow,
to
yeah, I see it now.
you're in
Yeah.
the eye, it's actually a take on the allegory of Plato's cave, whereby the shadows cast at the back of the eye is the cave, and the optic nerve is where the light is coming through. And so it's this power of illusion, memory stored in the optic, that is saying to you like this is still happening, when it's actually not, and then nothing actually shifting. So I guess like you see there's like this powerful light that pushes through
Yeah.
from the optics. That's the shift in the mind, which changes the image, which opens out into a different paradigm. So you have the paradigm being represented as the rainbow, uh, bridge, and then this man he's on the horse there as this powerful king,
Is
and
he,
the ring is broken.
is he
It's very
walking away or is he walking
Orthodox as
towards
well.
us? Is he walking away or is he walking towards us?
He's walking towards us. That's how
Hmm.
I envisioned it. He's walking
Hmm.
towards us. That's him coming outside of his own illusion, and breaking through the power piece, which is represented by the broken ring and the fire. So
Wow. Yeah, it's
there's a
very
lot in
deep.
that. It's pretty trippy as well. Like,
So,
it's yeah.
yeah, what about the cosmic womb of the Divine Mother?
Yeah, again, that was another title that was given to me that I was asked to paint into. So it's funny how you picked those two out, because mostly I paint things from my own journey, but then I never met these people who asked me to do this. Just concepts falling from the sky, and I paint into them. So yeah, that was the title was given to me, the cosmic womb of the Divine Mother. And then I was like, okay, how am I going to paint into that? So I did a bit of visioning myself, a bit more active visioning, bit of meditating and things like that. And this is what came through. I suppose you see, it's like she is the aurora. We think of like, I deliberately made her very Mother Mary like as well, because this is like, to me, where the essence of the Divine Mother lies, is in that blue, is in that cosmic element. And obviously the earthed element as well. There's so many expressions of Mother, but rarely is she seen in the sky. She's usually associated with the earth. And I see a very cosmic element to the feminine out there, which is usually only ever pointed to as a father like piece, you know, but I see kind of both. So people may argue they have very definitive lines as to what these things are. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it's a little bit more like this.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I suppose it's like you see the vulvic kind of shape as well. It's a little bit of the take on, um, yeah, like the Divine Mother Mary being displayed as like a vulva. You know what I mean? It sort of flips the whole virgin piece as well, and you know um
Yeah.
yeah. There's
Yeah.
again, there's messages in them.
So let's move on. And what about I'm really curious to know the thought process behind the Origins poster because like there's a
Probably my
alien,
most
there's a
cosmic.
UFO, there's something that looks like a Star of David, or I don't know what you would call that, the Seal of Solomon or something. You have the double helix DNA. So can you talk me through the what's going on in your mind when you're producing this painting?
By the way, for anybody watching, these are paintings that I have painted as a part of my journey from years ago. But it's interesting because like my intention is to bring all of this stuff together. You know what I mean? And to not leave it all in separate houses. But anyway, these are older paintings. So this painting, it was a bit of fun, actually. It was a bit of fun, and it was a bit of multitude of experiences I had that I sort of brought together. One experience where I actually was involved with a group at a electric picnic festival called Transmission, and I built a big Stargate, and actually, like in reality, built this Stargate, and then they wanted something visualized for t-shirts, and I decided that I would just go hell for leather. And so you see there's a DJ, right? Can you see the vinyl? So he's
Uh,
DJing. So with the whole concept with the transmission and that group of artists who come together is they have a DJ booth with a transmission, and they're transmitting through space to another galaxy to hit other life forms to come party with us.
that's so trippy.
Isn't it a mess?
Yeah.
And you know what?
I mean that had to be imagined when somebody was very high on mushrooms or LSD or something like that, you know?
I mean, the guy who owns Transmission, and shout out to him, is Ali, and he's brilliant. Like, he just is this way. I don't even think he was tripping. I think this is just genuinely like the way he thinks.
Yeah.
And he's building UFOs out in his back shed, casual. Um, so everyone else is like, what the hell's he doing? I'm sure his neighbors probably think like, but
Yeah.
no, I met Ali in, was it 2017, and I was dancing under a giant UFO in a rave in the woods, and I turn around to the first person I see. I'm like, this is deadly, and he was like, oh, thanks very much. And I was like, what do you mean, thanks very much? He's like, oh, I built it, didn't I? And I was like, you fucking built this. This is amazing. So we kind of in that moment decided that we were gonna collaborate. And he said, if you were to build something now, what would you build? And I said, oh, Stargate, because how are the aliens gonna get here? So it was just this complete joy in
Yeah.
like building things in the physical world that were pertaining to things that we do not see, and most of us don't even necessarily know are real or
Yeah.
believe in. But it was about making it real.
And it kind of
Um,
comes back to the thing you were saying earlier, about making something come off the canvas and bringing it into the real world.
Exactly. Like it may start out as a concept, as a scribble, as a drawing, but you don't know where things will take you in terms of that ripple off.
Hmm.
And that's what I mean about the power of creativity. And like, I have just such a plethora of stories relating to things like this where, and one thing I will say is that being unafraid to express the extent of it matters. As in, like, if you filter yourself, you're filtering your reality. That kind of way you're filtering the level of what you can experience out there. And so people may look at these paintings of mine and think that they're really far out. They are. I took the cap off.
I'm just writing down what you said there. If you're filtering yourself, you're filtering your reality.
You are.
Yeah, it's a good one. It's a bit like judge not lest you be judged.
Yeah, and you know what? Like for everyone who's out there and weird, there's always somebody weirder anyway. Like, do you know that kind of way? Like to other people, that's really normal. That's
Yeah.
fine, for them. It depends on where
Hmm.
people are in their flow, or in their
Absolutely
lack,
agree. Yeah.
yeah, or their lack thereof flow. Some people are very rigid and they just don't like things that break down models and structures in the known. And
Yeah.
to them, I'm a very scary person, but to others I'm like sort of fun and interesting, and like, and then to the people who know me too well and they're sick of hearing my stories, I'm like,
Yeah.
another thing again,
So can I ask you about a few other paintings on your site here?
Jez, you can keep going. Yeah,
Okay.
go on.
So the next one I'm looking at here is called Divine Family. And it's a woman and a man, and they're looking at each other. They're like silhouettes. And there's a baby that's has a, I don't know what would you call that, a vortex around it. And then in the background on the left, you have, it looks like a city in the distance. And on the right, you have, I think it's a river flowing into a lake. So would you like to talk about that painting?
Sure. Yeah. I love how you're just going, yeah, you're just talking about all the old ones. So yeah, so that was a commission. A couple came to me and said that they wanted a painting that would represent family essentially, but they were drawing reference from the artwork that I'd done before, and they said we want you to channel out something that will help us to get there essentially, so because they were
Lovely.
trying for a baby, and I was
That's
like,
a
cool,
lovely
yeah, no
thought, isn't
worries.
it?
Yeah. And it's funny how they trusted me with, like, I don't know,
Yeah,
like, your painting is somehow going to make this happen. And I'm like,
yeah.
okay.
And have you
Yeah.
kept in touch with this couple?
Yes, so actually, the couple did end up having a child, and there was a journey to that piece, and I won't go into it because it's kind of a private
Yeah,
thing,
no,
just
that's
just
fine.
in
That's
case there's.
fine. Yeah.
But the baby was ended up to be called, they called her Nova after and it was inspired through the painting. So there you
Wow,
go.
that is so
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
So I don't want to just keep focusing on your old paintings. Maybe there's like a newer painting that you would like to talk about.
Not necessarily, it's just, I guess, you know, people seeing these paintings might not understand, if they compartmentalize this, like, I suppose, the span of the journey
Hmm.
that I've been on. It's actually really great to go back on these pieces because I rarely get to talk about them, and it's also like I hate extracting parts of myself for other things, like, because I've had to sort of weave my journey in a way that allows me to. It's very hard to explain, but just coming back to, like, the present in where my art is, like, the visions are still coming through equally as strong, but just more from a different place, as opposed to
Yeah.
the cosmic element. Now they're coming through the earth, and the messaging, I suppose,
Yeah.
is connected to that. Um,
So what
so,
about
like,
the Vision of Eru painting? Is that a more recent one?
that was painted in, yeah, that was painted in 2023. And that was painted up on the hill of Ishnock during the fire festival. So I, yeah, I just went up there, and started painting, and I had no. It's funny with that one because I that's an interesting one because the way that painting came out was not actually how I thought it would come out. My vision that I had in my mind of Eru was completely shifted by being at Ishnock. So that's a really interesting one, is that it was actually the land itself that showed
Mm,
me that image, as opposed to anything preconceived in my mind. I
wow.
really was like, it was not, it was just the land, and it was the fire, and it was everyone being there
Yeah.
that showed me what she sort of wanted to be presented like.
Wow. Is this the painting that is in the visitor center at the moment? You mentioned it before.
Yeah, it's on display at the visitor center. So yeah, there's I suppose, there hadn't been a depiction up there of Eru necessarily. There are, like, there's a sculpture, like, there are other artists
Yeah.
obviously who have done images, but I don't think they had an exact image where they were like, okay, we're going to people coming in and out, and tourists and all the rest. For the tours, I don't think they had an image to kind of point to as Eru. Um, when I painted that, I kind of felt like it should be up there. But obviously I didn't know, this kind of thing of, like, well, look, I mean, I'm just going to leave it. So I left it. I didn't actively put that up there myself, but just through a come around through friends and connections, I ended up being asked if that image could be displayed up there, and so it's sitting up there at the moment. And yeah, it's I suppose
Mm,
it's visually representing Aero up there
yeah.
right now, so that's kind of cool.
So what was the most recent painting that you've created?
Well, the one that I am the ones that I'm working on right now is a sequence, a series based upon Macha.
Hmm.
Um, Macha, that being the horse goddess connected to the north. So, she was actually the first Irish goddess that presented herself to me in a vision. Um, Before that, and some of these visions are quite a few years ago that I'm actually only getting a chance to paint now. Um, but before that, I don't actually feel like I had too, like, obviously you hear the stories, you know what I mean? You hear the stories of Maeve and the Margan and all the rest, but I hadn't connected to the Irish goddess in a way of my own being, shall we say,
Hmm.
more than just the external stories and things like that. Plus, actually, growing up, I didn't hear an awful lot of the stories of the goddesses. It was mostly the warriors. Um, they weren't as much told. um, and anyway, this series of paintings I'm working on are based upon three separate visions of Macha. Two of them as her as an actual horse, one of the land, and then one of the other world. And then the third piece, which I haven't even started yet, will be a portrait. Um, and so yeah, they're the ones I'm working on.
So I'm just looking at the time here, and
Yeah,
maybe we should start talking about VisionEire.
we should.
I'm loving this conversation. I could talk to you for hours. Um, but just to kind of, start to bring this into land, um, you're the founder of VisionEire,
Yes.
and I'm just wondering, like, what were your initial motivations for establishing this collective? I believe it was in 2023, just after the pandemic. And how has that VisionEire, how has that group evolved since then?
Yeah, so firstly, it was yeah, it cropped its first little head, I suppose, as an actual physical thing. It was first in actually 2022, and then people
Okay.
only kind of came together for it in about 2023. Um, but it was a vision that I had and had held on to for about 7 years prior. And it was something that was actually a bit of a plague, it felt, because I had no way of bringing it about. I was like, oh, I felt really like,
Mm.
oh, this would be really great, but like, how, like, maybe somebody else will do this. So,
So
really,
just before you go into detail, maybe you could just explain
yeah,
exactly what VisionEire is.
yeah. I feel like we're probably going to have a whole separate conversation on this now. So,
Take your
Visionera, look,
time.
very simply,
I don't want you to feel rushed.
no, it's fine. VisionEire is essentially it's a platform that is there to meet and uplift the sort of the new wave of artists, of visionaries, of ecological entrepreneurs, leaders in Ireland, essentially, and bring them to the foreground as opposed to the background. And what I mean about this new wave, a lot of it isn't actually very new. A lot of it has just been actually there a long time, but it's only coming to the fore now. So that's what I mean, is
Hmm.
that like everything that we're sort of talking about in terms of reconnection to ourselves, reconnection to our roots, reconnection to community, and all the rest. It is a kind of like an artist's platform, like it's primarily artists who jump on board VisionEire, is to actually bring the sounds and the visions to the fore, essentially, where it's sort of an outside of gallery, that we set up mycelially all over the country.
That's a very interesting use of the word mycelium.
Well, we crop up and we disappear,
Yeah,
but we're always there
yeah.
underneath it all.
So, just based on that, could you provide some details about the sort of events that are happening around the country, and how are you showcasing these artists' work?
Yeah, so everything has happened very organically. We're actually only really structuring ourselves at the moment. Everything is just sort of like what can we do as participation with each other. So the types of things that we've been doing is gelling up with festivals, and building kind of like galleries from scratch, doing takeovers on stages, bridging live art into spaces, offering a kind of like a sales stream for artists as well. So you probably find us at a lot of the independent festivals going around. And then we also like to do our own standalone events, particularly around the Celtic calendar as opposed to. So we're not going to do
Yeah.
things necessarily for Christmas. You probably won't see us, but we'll be there at the winter solstice, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we like to orientate ourselves around the natural cycles. So yeah, I suppose one of our big ones that but this is where we started out actually was at Foynia Festival. When and I know we spoke
And
about
for,
this.
for
Yeah,
my international listeners, Fwynhf is an
yeah,
Irish word that means like power or energy, right?
yeah. It means energy. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, and it is that. It's
Yeah.
certainly got an energy, and it's like that last kind of blast of the summer. It's in September, so it's that last hurrah before we kind of like, you know,
Retreat into hibernation.
retreat, retreat. Yeah. Um, but that is offered us because of the level of openness to create there that Luke and that festival offers us. It's like we've been able to build things that are, you know outside of the norm, like, and I plan to keep it going that way and find more spaces where we can do things a lot differently. Like last year we built in a spiral gallery with kind of like a model of a temple like element in the center that you could sit into, and it's blanked out space, darkened out space with just low lit visionary paintings. So really, like, we promote and we promote a lot of different types of art styles and everything, but we are really trying to also bring out the visionary elements, the ones linked to the land and the stories here primarily, but not solely.
Yeah.
It's all a part of it. We're not an exclusive club.
Yeah. So, well, that's a good segue into my next question. So, if I'm sitting at home and I'm an artist and I'm really excited about what you're talking about, how could I get involved with VisionEire?
Yeah, so the best thing at the moment, because like things will change as we build up our model and our structure, but it's still very easy to get involved with VisionEire. All you got to do is reach out. If you're online, you can follow us, VisionEire.ie. Um, that's the Instagram name and the website. You can also reach out to me, Maria Johnston Artist, on Instagram, and yeah, just show us your work. Like the means are very low at the moment for people to jump on board. Essentially, it's like, do you have uh, a stream of art? I don't care. We don't care about who you are, where you've studied, where you've showcased. None of that matters. Don't want, like, yeah, it's cool to share, like, but it's not the means for entry at
Yeah.
all. It's
Yeah.
like, do you have some cool art? Do you have something that you want to express and get involved with? And also, like, come with another skill is also really beneficial because we're actually trying to build things
So when
in
you
an
say another
yeah.
skill, it's like a craft or something that you can do. You can build a stage or you can do something a little bit more outside of painting on a canvas, right?
Yeah, like, and it depends on people's capacities and all the rest, but it is beneficial to us because we are an artist-led, artist-built community from the ground up. We don't have any middlemen, and we don't want them necessarily. We really just want people who are in it for the build as well, in it for the grit of starting something from scratch. So if people are kind of looking to come along and have like pristine walls that they can present their art on, they might be finding that they might be building those walls. And you know what I mean?
Well,
So
that's a good thing to point out before they apply, right?
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
contribution based, it is contribution based, but it's not all about building as well. It's just have another skill. It could be any skill. It
Yeah.
We're not just artists. We're other things too,
Yeah. So in your role, and you probably answered this just a moment ago, but in your role as manager of VisionEire, how do you select and curate artists and projects that align with your overall vision for VisionEire?
Yeah, I section them and I dictate. No, I the invitation is open to everyone to co-curate. That's how I do it. I like it's not up to me. Obviously, I'm overseeing the piece, and my aim is to oversee it until I pass away from this world and make sure that it doesn't go to the dark side. That's all.
Hmm.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I know what you mean.
just make sure that like whatever's being presented is actually somewhat like adhering to where like what we're about and where we're going. Like there has to be a pillar. You know what I mean? There needs to be a center. And so sometimes, there will be curation happening amongst the group and then somebody, and sometimes it's not me actually, sometimes it's somebody else, but more than often it is me. And I just come in with my freaking staff and I'm just like, get it out of here.
Yeah.
It just has to be.
Well,
And it's
I
awful to have to
yeah,
be that person. But
I used to work in a big organization and we would call ourselves a big tent organization. But
yeah,
then that doesn't mean you let anybody in. It was like we would often say, well, the tent has walls, and if we let everybody in, how are we going to distinguish ourselves from everybody else, So it is important to kind of have a creative vision and know where those lines are. But if you're open to, receiving applications, well, maybe the lines are not so defined yet, and that's probably a good thing as well because as you said, you're still growing, you're still evolving and trying to figure it out for yourselves. So the last
yeah.
question I have is this could be my last question. What future plans or expansion do you envision for Visionera? Perhaps in terms of new festivals, online initiatives, broader outreach, maybe all of the above. Could you just talk us through your vision for Visionera?
Yeah, well, like it's the vision for Vision Era is to represent, as I said, it's a representation and an advocacy model for artists who have been kept mostly out of the main frame, the mainstream, and been mostly on the fringes, whether that's down to the style of work or their limitations, you know what I mean? Their limited capacities to be able to be in other spaces, be in these kind of like gate kept communities and all the rest. I really foresee it going as like a thing that really flips the whole way in which art is engaged with in this country. And that's where I'd like to see it go, is that it takes art out of these gate kept spheres and brings it back into community and back into purpose and back, artists being in control of their output again, not having to censor themselves, not
Yep.
having to veer towards a certain style in order to make money, but and also them regaining control over their sales and not being
Yes.
reached by whoever.
Yep.
So like I see it as a piece of an act of a movement of artists taking their own back and taking their art, maybe some of the even the more experienced artists taking their art off those gallery walls and bringing it back down
Yeah.
and bringing the ladder down.
Like
um
democratizing the art, even if that's a word that I'm not really fond of, but that's what the way you're describing it makes me think of the word of democratizing art, bringing it back to the people, I should say.
Bringing it back to the people and bringing it back to its value as well,
Yeah.
and like so that people no longer need to question the value of art in themselves, right?
Mm.
Their own creativity. It's like it is a known fact that everything that we put our hand to has a ripple off effect, and now we see it in our environment. I would love to see the ripple off of this coming into our own environments, and that the things that we put to paper and pen and word and voice actually making a change
Hmm.
um in the way we restructure our society.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a big vision, but it is like,
Well, you have to dream big. You have to
you
dream
do.
big. I mean, and create such beautiful art from your imagination, well, then why not imagine? big things.
Sure, what else are we here for? Like, do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Exactly. What else would we be doing? So I said that was the last question, but I always ask my guests, is there anything that you would have liked me to have asked you that we didn't talk about?
No, I mean, like, I don't know. I was like, what you have for breakfast? Do you know what I mean?
Well,
No, I think that's good. I think that's good. I think there's a lot more to be said on all of it, and I could keep go like honestly could keep going, but
yeah,
I think that that's the main markers. I think people will either feel a resonance, let's say with Visionaire, what I'm talking about, um, or not, or they'll feel a resonance with me as a person or not, and that's like yeah, that's it.
well, listen, I didn't know what to expect when I reached out to you a couple of weeks ago. Um, but I'm really glad that I did because you have a great energy about you and your art is amazing. And I'm very happy to feel like you know there's a budding friendship happening here. And so yes, I'm very glad that I had the courage to reach out to you and say hello. And
Yeah.
it's been a real joy speaking to you and just learning more about you and learning about your artwork and what motivates your artwork. So thank you for sharing all of this with me.
Thank you for listening to me. Jesus, you did a good job. Good job. No, it's brilliant. I'm really grateful for this opportunity as well, and I just think that what you're doing is amazing, and yeah, just to keep doing it,
Yeah,
and it's link in with like there's a lot of shared aspects there
yeah.
in what you and I are about as well.
Hmm.
So and this is what it is about is more of us catching the wave,
Yeah.
essentially. Yeah.
So if you have any events coming up, and you want to promote them, I don't really have a huge audience, but you're more than welcome to promote them on my YouTube channel because it's like a different outlet, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and so, whatever it happens to be, even if you just want to record a 5 or 10 minute clip promoting your event that's coming up, I'd be happy to air that on my channel.
Yeah, that's great. I'll give you a whole list.
Okay. Slán, slán go fóill.
Fun.
Well, folks, I truly hope that you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. And if you want to get in touch with Maria, I've included her links and details in the description of this video and also in the top pinned comment. And as you can probably see by now, she is quite affable and approachable, and I'm sure she would love to hear from you. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much. And please like it and share it if you haven't already. And if you're not subscribed, why not? Why are you not subscribed? Please just click subscribe. It's very easy to do. And we just produce content like this all the time. Now, before we go, just a reminder once again to check out the brehinacademy.org, brehinacademy.org, not the. That's where you're going to find information about my online courses. And also check us out on social media. We're on Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Telegram. And while you're over on the website, remember to check out the blog, check out the online merch store as well, and check out my courses because they're quite reasonably priced. Now, Gurumila Mahagut, a Gurumila Ma Agwiv, that's the plural. And until next time, a Horja, Slangafall.